You are listening to the Mike Riley Now podcast on the Young Angels of America Network. Follow us by visiting MikeRileyNow.com. All right, and welcome to the Mike Riley Now podcast here on the Young Angels of America Network. I am your host, Mr. Mike Riley. I am joined, of course, by my incredible co-host. We got both of them back tonight, Miss Charlie Sandy and my girl Cam Robson. Say what up.
Hi, guys. Hi.
It is good to have the whole squad back in. Today is Thursday, February 23rd, 2017. I have to apologize to all of my listeners. We were supposed to do a show last week, but we didn't. I got a little sick. I got a little under the weather, and I didn't want to come to the show not fully prepared and not fully being myself, so I had to take a day off. So I do apologize about that. I will try to not get sick in the future, but I'm only human. But we are back. So we missed our Valentine's Day show. I had a whole big Valentine's Day thing lined up, but don't worry about it. We will circle back to those issues here pretty soon. But I do want to thank you all so much for tuning in. I am broadcasting live on Facebook Live too. If anybody wants to be on Facebook Live, it's on my personal Facebook page. It's not on the Mike Riley Now podcast page just yet, but we are getting there. I swear to God, we are what they call a WIP, a WIP. You know what a WIP is? Can you guess? Work in progress. Like a lover. That's right. That's right. We are a work in progress. And you know what? It's all about progression, not perfection around these parts. All right, cool. So I want to shout out all of my listeners, of course, on Facebook, on Spreaker, on iTunes, on Stitcher, on TuneIn. When we're not on TuneIn just yet, but we're working on it, on iHeartRadio as well. Thank you so much for tuning in. Follow us on MikeRileyNow.com. You can Mike Riley Now is all the handles on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. Have to definitely shout out Brooke Doherty, the director of Young Angels Network here. And that's about it. Yeah, so let's get right into it. We have a pretty crazy show today. So a little bit later on in the show, we're supposed to be getting a phone call from Mitchell Schwartz. He's running for mayor of the city of Los Angeles. So hopefully we'll be able to talk to him. He's supposed to be calling in. And like I said, we have an election in the city of Los Angeles coming up on March 7th. Which is our primary election. And if not one candidate receives 50% of the votes, it goes to a runoff election, which is a general election, which takes place in May. And so Mitchell Schwartz is challenging our incumbent, Mayor Eric Garcetti. We talked about him on the show before, but we really want to talk to Mitchell. So if you're in the Los Angeles area and you're into local politics, this is going to be a good time tonight to listen into the show. And the call-in number, once again, is 310-910-9113. Feel free to call into the show. We would love to hear from you. Okay, so we're going to jump into it right now. But before we jump into it, there's so many things I want to go over tonight. I definitely want to talk about all these things that have been happening since we've been gone. Since President's Day, there's been so much shit that's been taking place. There was the DNC chair debate that happened last night. Did y'all catch that? It was we'll talk about that a little bit. It was meh. I was kind of meh. There was there's the immigration. Donald Trump has gotten aggressive with his deportation kind of methods, and he has been deporting a lot of people left and right and really stepping up the immigration thing. So we'll talk about that a little bit. But I really want to talk about first, okay, so what's going on right now is Congress is in what they call recess, right? Congress is in recess. And basically what that means is that when Congress is in recess, they tell everybody in Congress, all the representatives pretty much, not the senators, but mostly the representatives, they tell them to go home, back to your districts, and talk to your constituents. Your constituents are basically the people that you represent in your district, right? And they're supposed to hold these town hall meetings. Well, a lot of Republicans, which is the majority of Congress right now, they went home, and a few of them had town hall meetings, and man, it has not been pretty for a lot of them. A lot of them have been getting pretty much railroaded by a lot of the policies that they are supporting, including a lot of the representatives who support Donald Trump. A lot of them who voted for Betsy DeVos, a lot of them who supported Rex Tillerson, and Steve Bannon, a lot of them who were involved in a lot of these things that Donald Trump is getting a lot of scrutiny over, were having these town hall meetings, and they were just getting bombarded. And one in particular was by a congressman by the name of Tom Cotton. Now, Tom Cotton is from Arkansas. And if y'all remember correctly, and I want to make sure I have my history right, so I'm gonna Google search him real quick. But Tom Cotton, if I'm not mistaken, was the one who wrote that letter to the president of Iran after Barack Obama signed the Iran deal. And the Iran deal basically was stating that, Iran can start a nuclear program, and as long as they don't build a weapon. And if I'm not mistaken, he's the one that got those 47 different people from Congress to sign that letter. And it was a really, really, really big deal at the time. Now, Tom Cotton goes back, and Tom Cotton is a fervent, if I said that word right, I probably didn't. So go ahead and send me.
You did, well done.
I did? Okay, tight. I love it when I don't have a very wide vocabulary.
We need to expand.
We need to expand. I need to read me a dictionary. See, I just said I need to read me a dictionary. That was horrible. That was god-awful.
She said, earlier, what was it you said? Something about snowing.
I meant to say when you go skiing, and I may have said when you go snowing.
See, that's it.
tired.
Yeah, it's just
it's okay. We all
it's
make
just a
these
slip
mistakes.
of the tongue. Yeah, you know what it is, listeners out there in podcast land. I'm very comfortable with you, and once I start getting comfortable around people, I just I start talking like that. But anyway, we'll talk about that another time. So Tom Cotton goes home, and Tom Cotton is strongly against the Affordable Care Act. He's one of these representatives that's voting to repeal and replace it. Now, what they're replacing it with, we still don't know.
They don't know.
They don't know. Nobody knows. Donald Trump had this huge rally last week in Melbourne, Florida, where he sat up there and he said, in a couple weeks, we're going to roll out a replacement for Obamacare. That's what they like to call it. They don't like to call it the Affordable Care Act, especially because a lot of people didn't know that Obamacare and the Affordable Care Act were the same thing for a long time. But he said, we're going to have this huge replacement for Obamacare, and you're really going to like it, folks. You're really going to like it. You're going to like the replacement for Obamacare. I swear what we're rolling out is going to be great. And then he turned around and said there was a terrorist attack in Sweden or some shit. And
What the fuck was that?
There was no... Does anybody know what happened in Sweden?
Never in the history of any time has Sweden ever been on the number one terrorist violence list.
You know what it
and
is?
Then you look at his tweet about it, and it was it was about something that I
saw on Fox
on
News.
Fox News.
Something I saw on Fox News. Right?
source.
Yeah, I saw it on Fox News. Thank you. I love it. That's where our president gets his information from. But anyway,
should be the other effing way around.
Right. But I want to play something for you that happened at the town hall meeting last night with Tom Cotton. Listen to this. By the way, I gotta say, I did this thing, the Uninformed States of America, about how people weren't really involved in the political process. Not enough people were involved in politics. Donald Trump, I think, has changed that in our culture. There have been so many people going to these town hall meetings, protesting, not necessarily protesting. I shouldn't say protesting, but challenging what's been going on. So let me play this real quick. And I know y'all out there in Facebook land can't hear what's going on in the headphones, so I apologize. But like I said, we are a WIP.
But if you tune in,
you can listen. Yeah, when it comes live, you can listen to it. Check it out.
And all your problems are solved.
Yeah,
But listen to this. This young lady asked Tom Cotton, what are you going to do to replace the Affordable Care Act? Because I depend on Obamacare. Listen to this.
A lot about the repeal, but you have not gone into specifics on replacements. So my question is, will you commit today to replacement protections for those Arkansans like me who will die or lose their quality of life or otherwise be unable to be participating citizens trying to get their part of the American dream? Will you commit to replacements in the same way that you have committed to the repeal?
Now listen to what he does here. Listen to Tom Cotton does here. Notice how the crowd is cheering very, very loudly about that.
He finally says it on everybody's mind.
Right.
Thank you, Katie. Let's take a couple more comments or questions about health care.
So for those of you out there in Facebook land that didn't get a chance to listen to that, basically what happened was a young lady asked, because the Republican Party has been trying to repeal Obamacare for the last 7 or 6 years, pretty much. They have been trying to repeal it aggressively, but they have never came up with a replacement. You mean you've been trying 6 years to try to repeal a law without something to replace it with? The young lady at the town hall asked Tom Cotton, are you going to commit today to having a replacement, to committing to a replacement as much as you are committed to repealing the Affordable Care Act? And Tom Cotton basically said, thank you. We're going to take a few more questions and comments from the audience. He didn't answer the question. You want to know why he didn't answer the question?
Because his answer would be, well,
they have nothing to replace the Affordable Care Act with. Republicans campaigned on this. Donald Trump campaigned. Nobody likes Obamacare. Everybody hates Obamacare. Obamacare doesn't work. Obamacare doesn't work. Listen to this one. Oh, by the way, for Donald Trump and a lot of the Republican Party, a lot of the Trump supporters were saying these were all paid protesters that were at these town hall meetings. Because I'm telling you, there were thousands, hundreds and hundreds of people that went to these town hall meetings. A lot of Republicans actually didn't end up holding town hall meetings as a result of what's been going on. A lot of people are kind of comparing this to the Tea Party phenomena that happened back in 2010. You know, when Barack Obama became president, you had all of these Tea Partiers showing up to town hall meetings. But a lot of them came armed. You know, I'll never forget there were a lot of them that came with rifles strapped on their backs and things like that. So the point I'm trying to make is that you know, this kind of movement is starting to happen on the left as well, but it's not really a Tea Party movement, so to speak. This is a movement of resistance. But anyway, listen to what this lady said. Listen to this.
In Springdale. We're going Medicare my way.
Wait, okay, maybe this isn't the right clip.
Not your way. My way. I've got a husband dying, and we can't afford. Let me tell you something. If you can get us better coverage than this, go for it. Let me tell you what we have, plus a lot of benefits that we need.
Right.
We have $29 per month for my husband.
Well, okay, I got to skip to the part of the clip, but she basically points out that I am not a paid protester. I am not somebody who came here because, and if anybody knows where you can get paid to protest, would you please send that information to MikeRileyNow.com so that way I can get paid to do it.
I would pay someone to let me protest at this point. Like, who the hell is saying that they are paid protesters?
Go on Twitter. You know, a lot of the Donald Trump says it himself. He says a lot of these protesters are paid. Like, this is like a real thing to them. You know, this is you know, they really think this outrage is hysteria, and I you know, that's definitely not the case. But the point I'm trying to make is, through this whole thing, is that these town hall meetings are just a big reminder of how much the hyperbole exists within the current administration in the White House. Donald Trump is kind of boasting that nobody likes the Affordable Care Act. Nobody likes all these things that are going on. And that's just simply not true. And the Republicans don't have a replacement because how do you replace the Affordable Care Act? They want to, you know what they want to do? They want to keep the parts that that people like, but get rid of the individual mandate, right? But if you get rid of the individual mandate, how do you cover everybody? You have to go to a universal healthcare system. But anyway, like I said, that's a story for another day, and we're coming up against a break here in a second. And on the other side of the break, we're supposed to be talking to Mitchell Schwartz, so hopefully we hear from him. But if not, on the other side of the break, we'll do a little bit of news of the week. But I really want to talk about a lot of the things that have been going on, including the DNC chair debate that happened last night. The DNC chair debate for the people running for the DNC chair was crazy. I take this pretty serious because this is supposed to be our leadership on the left, and we have none right now. So we'll talk about that on the other side of the break, and hopefully we'll be talking to Mitchell Schwartz too. This is the Mike Riley Now podcast.
To the Mike Riley Now podcast.
on the Young Angels of America Network. Follow us by visiting MikeRileyNow.com. Yeah, and welcome back to the Mike Riley Now podcast here on the Young Angels of America Network. Please follow us by visiting MikeRileyNow.com. I am all the way live on Facebook Live. We are going to be on YouTube Live. See, basically what we're going to do, if you're watching, we're going to flip this whole studio around, right? Like I said, we are a WIP work in progress. And what we're going to do is we're going to put like cameras everywhere. So we're going to have like this multiple camera thing going on. So yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. It's going to be pretty cool. All right, we're going to talk about a little bit of news of the week real quick. And then we'll get into this whole thing about what's been going on in the world, and we'll talk about some local politics too. But I kind of want to get away from this a little bit. Something really cool happened. NASA has, and I know a lot of people heard about this, they said 7 alien Earths have been found orbiting a nearby star. So basically, they have found 7 Earth-like planets. This was on National Geographic. It says 7 rocky planets orbiting a nearby star may be roughly the size of Earth and can be even right for water and maybe life. To adorn their surfaces, researchers announced on Wednesday. The planets, which circle a star called TRAPPIST, it's only 39 light years away.
I think it's just
TRAPPIST. That sounds like a rapper's name.
Pretty sure it's just
like
Trappist.
He makes trap music. I'll be in the trap. I'm Trappist. No? Okay.
No.
Stick
Yeah.
to J-Dog.
Yeah, okay, I will.
Let's move on. Nope. Let's just nope.
All right, I had to get that one in real quick.
We could have used it earlier.
We could have used it earlier.
Talking about,
Yeah. All those people, but we'll talk about that another time. But anyway, the article goes on to say the TRAPPIST-1 system is now tied with several others that have 7 planets for the greatest number of planets in the stellar system other than our own, which has 8, not counting the dwarf planets like Pluto. The system existence suggests that the Earth-sized planets are much more plentiful than previously imagined. So that means that there are other types of Earths out there, possibly, and they're only 39 light years away. So before you plan your next vacation,
take this into account.
Take this into a consideration. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm leaving.
We gotta get up out of here. We gotta get up out of here. So I thought that was a pretty interesting. Yeah, I thought that was a pretty interesting article. And I'm gonna put it up on MikeRileyNow.com. But science is a very incredible thing, and I think it's really cool that NASA is continuing their research into space exploration. That I've always been a fan of that. All right, so this is Mitchell Schwartz. He's calling in right now. So give me 1 second. I'm gonna go ahead and pick up the phone here. Hello, Mitchell.
Hi.
Hello, Mr. Schwartz. How are you?
I'm good.
Excellent.
How you doing?
I am breathing. I'm doing very good. Thank you so much for being on the show. Let me go ahead and introduce you the proper way. Thanks for joining.
How's the connection?
The connection's amazing.
How's the connection?
It sounds good.
Okay,
we can definitely hear you. So for all my peoples there on Facebook Live and for everybody who's listening, like I was talking about earlier on the show, the city of Los Angeles, which is the city we all live in here, we're having a pretty much kind of like a primary election that's coming up on March the 7th, which is coming up pretty soon. And it's a very, very, very important election. And we have one of the candidates who is running in that election here on the show with us right now, Mr. Mitchell Schwartz. So thank you so much, Mr. Schwartz, for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you on. There are so many things.
Having me.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many things we kind of want to cover as far as like local politics is kind of concerned. On the show here, we usually talk a lot about national politics, but we don't really get a chance to talk about a lot of the local politics that are taking place. And as I'm sure you're probably aware, the city of Los Angeles had one of the lowest voter turnouts in our last mayoral election, by far. For a city our size, being the second largest metropolis, the second largest city in the United States, we had an extremely low voter turnout when Eric Garcetti went against Wendy Gruhl back in 2013. And a lot of people think that this had to do with the fact that there were just two kind of Democrats that are kind of running against each other who kind of have the same principles that kind of drive down voter turnout. And a lot of people are comparing you to Eric Garcetti in that same way. There was an LA Times article, I think, that kind of mentioned that. What do you have to say about that, or what are your thoughts on that? I'm just curious.
Yeah, well, on the race 4 years ago, I'm not sure why turnout was low because it was an open seat. But as far as myself and the mayor, I think we're probably ideologically similar in that we're pretty liberal, progressive, Democrats. But I think our differences are that as far as being mayor, it's about kind of delivering services the most cheapest, efficient way, and ideology doesn't play as big a role, I think, in being mayor. And so we actually have very big differences on a host of issues, from DWP overhaul to I have a very strong plan about affordable housing. I think the development policies have been bad.
Right.
We disagree on pensions, on crime. So on a host of issues, even though we may be kind of similar ideologically, in practice, we just have very different approaches to city government and how it should work. So I just think ideology has a little bit less to do with being mayor than it might be in being president or Senate or Congress or something like that.
Right. And the constituency is kind of different at the same time. But a lot of my friends out there aren't really fully aware that there's an election even coming up in the city of Los Angeles pretty soon, and that's they don't know who to vote for. They're not really informed on a lot of the issues. Do you think that has something to do with us kind of just being victims of our own success? I mean, LA. Would you consider LA kind of a successful city?
I don't really consider it as successful as it should be. It's obviously a magnet and a place that people want to live, but it's increasingly difficult. I think the signs in this city are actually not good. The trends are not great overall. That I think it's because the national economy has been pretty good. Certainly the unemployment rate is very low. For the city of Los Angeles, our budget has increased by 25%, almost $1 billion in 4 years. But yet I don't think we're doing so great in that you could look at the streets, the sidewalks. I mean, that sinkhole is kind of a good metaphor for the decaying infrastructure. The parks are not in great shape. And then I think there are the more serious issues. We have record numbers of homelessness.
Yes.
Violent crime's gone up 3 straight years, including a almost 40% increase in violent crime in the last 2 years alone. DWP is ranked 15th out of the 15th utilities surveyed. That in the western part of the United States, they always finish last in the J.D. Power Survey Associates survey of customer satisfaction. And then one of the issues, which I think is the most important, is lack of affordable housing. In Los Angeles, we spend more of our income on rent or home ownership than any other city. And so it's made it really hard for regular folks, middle class, poor people to live here. And so I don't think it's working as great as it should. I think the development policies have ended up supplying us a lot of luxury housing, but not a lot of affordable housing. Traffic is worse, and yet somehow metro ridership, which includes buses, light rail, and subways, went down this year. Ridership went down because the policies they're pursuing the wrong policies to fight traffic. Right. So, the city's a place. This city is a place that I think that people always want to come to. The weather is something, the geography, Hollywood. And so I always say that it kind of works in spite of itself, but it should be working much, much better. And especially given that we're in the eighth year of an economic recovery, and we're going to do for recession, we should be in much better shape than we are. So while we're not doing terribly, I think the trends are just not great overall, again, with regards to crime, homelessness, and other things. But when the next recession kicks in, I think we're going to be in real trouble. So I just think we're going to be doing a lot better than we are right now.
Right. And speaking of affordable housing, and I can attest to this myself, I've been a Los Angeles resident for quite some time, and I always say Los Angeles itself would be a utopia if it weren't for the cost of living and the traffic, which is astronomical. It's something else. And a lot of people are really, a lot of Angelenos are really, or at least the ones that are paying attention, are really they have a really strong stance on Measure S, which has a lot to do with development and economic development that's happening in the city. And so many people are kind of torn on this. And for my listeners who don't know what Measure S is, Measure S is a measure where they're trying to, I think it's something about they're trying to control the zoning laws for a lot of the new development coming in the city, but they don't want it's something about they don't want the investment coming from City Hall because there's so much corruption within City Hall. But a lot of people say they want to stop the corruption in City Hall. However, they don't want to stifle economic growth within the city of Los Angeles. What's your stance on Measure S?
Yeah, so Measure S is an initiative that.
Sorry, we're coming up against a break here. Would you mind staying with us and explaining all this?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, sorry, we do our little break session right here. This is the
No
Mike
problem.
Riley
Go
Now.
ahead. No
Awesome.
problem.
This is the Mike Riley Now podcast here on the Young Angels of America Network. We will be right back with Mitchell Schwartz running for the city of Los Angeles mayor. You are listening to the Mike Riley Now podcast on the Young Angels of America Network. Follow us by visiting MikeRileyNow.com. All right, and welcome back to the Mike Riley Now podcast here on the Young Angels of America Network. We are speaking with candidate for the city of Los Angeles mayor, Mr. Mitchell Schwartz, here on the line. Mr. Mitchell Schwartz, like I said, thank you again for joining us. So you were talking about Measure S a second ago.
Right.
Yeah, I'm
Right.
sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
No, that's okay. Sorry. So you're asking about Measure S. So Measure S, what they want to do is on Measure S is they're basically saying this spot zoning it should be not allowed anymore. Well, let me just take a second and explain what that is.
Right.
So usually a city has community plans and a general plan that has certain zoning, which says, well, this area is residential, might be commercial, it might be zoned for industrial use. In the residential, it could be one story, it could be multifamily homes. There's all types of different designations, but every city has zoning laws, and when you build or develop properties, you have to follow those laws, except in Los Angeles. In Los Angeles, the city council can decide that they can do anything they want in any area they want. If they wanted to go to a neighborhood that's multifamily and single-family houses and say they want to put a 100-story apartment building there, they could do it. They could overrule whatever zoning there is. So what that does, in effect, is it lets developers go to different council people and the mayor, give them money for their campaigns in exchange for changing the zoning in different places. So, for instance, if a place was zoned for one or two-story buildings and then they allow them to do a five-story building, that land is worth a lot more. So you could see the kind of corruption that it leads to, and it's called pay-to-play politics. And the LA Times always doing stories about how the developers will spread some campaign money around and get the changes they want that'll allow them to do different things. So my feeling is, though, that I'm not endorsing it. I'm not opposing it, but the reason I'm not endorsing it personally is I think that the spot zoning has to be eliminated, and that we need to have these community plans, which you work on for a couple of years, you get the community's input, and that's how you decide how the zoning is, and then we have to stick to it. So I've incorporated that into my housing plan, but like I said before, I think an issue that's huge and just as big as the bad development and corrupt development that happens is the lack of affordable housing. And so I say that the Measure S will stop the bad development, and I like that part of it, but I want to go the next step of saying, well, we also have to relieve the crazy amount of money that we're spending for rent. And you mentioned that, earlier, Michael, you just said something about it being, great except for the traffic and the amount of money we have to spend for rent.
Right.
It wasn't like that when I moved here. I moved here only not that long ago. Well, probably longer than some of your listeners are alive.
You're from
21
New York,
years
right?
ago.
Yeah.
I'm
New York
from New
City
York originally.
Right.
And I came from D.C. I worked in the Clinton administration at the State Department and came from there. And 21 years ago, it wasn't like that. 15 years ago, it wasn't like that. But we've built some housing, but a lot of it's been luxury housing. So that's why I'm not endorsing Measure S, but I've incorporated the most important things I think in my plan. But I also emphasize that we do need a lot of housing units, maybe 250,000, because there is a little bit of a question of supply and demand if we raise the supply of units, the rent should come down. So that's why I've been advocating that.
Well,
so
how do you
the long answer hopefully explained a little bit.
Yeah, it did. But how do you effectively bring down the cost of housing in a place like this? I mean, this is one of the most expensive cities to live in the world. And and you've mentioned that they're the middle class within it is starting to shrink. It's a city for either the rich or a city for the poor. How do you effectively bring down the cost? How do you mandate something like that?
Yeah, the way you do it is, it's a lot of it is, and I have a 14-page report if anyone wants to go into it. I actually spent a lot of time trying to figure this out. It's on my website, if I may give it,
yes,
schwartzformayor.com.
Awesome, yes.
Yeah, please everyone go to Schwartz for Mayor. Yeah, thanks. schwartzformayor.com. And it's a 14-page plan about how we build more housing and we incentivize developers and make it easier for them to do it. But yeah, it is a question, a little bit of supply and demand. We just have not built enough housing units for the population that's moved here. And
right.
The population isn't as large as they expected it to be years ago, just because it's too expensive for a lot of people. So it hasn't grown the way they expected it. It's, people are still moving here, just not as fast as they used to, or as they'd like to. So it's a little bit of question, again, of supply and demand. We have to increase the supply, and that's through making it both incentivizing developers to do it in certain areas and also sometimes making it easier. But with that comes requirements that they have some affordable housing in their units.
Yeah.
So to me, we have to build more units. It really is, and these are, a lot of studies have been done from Harvard University to the LA Economic Development Groups to all these different universities, and they all say that there is, since 1990, we really just haven't kept up with the amount of people that have moved in here. We do have to, build some more units.
Right.
And
definitely.
that, frankly, could reduce traffic, because a lot of the people who work in LA would rather live in the confines of LA, but
right.
because of the expenses, live far out and drive in. So
yeah,
it's actually made it worse.
There's nothing like living in the valley and trying to drive to the west side for work. It is something else. We don't have a great deal of time left, but with the little bit of time we do have left, I do want to talk about energy and the environment. You have a long history of being an environmentalist, which is something I definitely I got to take my hat off to you for. And you talk about Los Angeles becoming a 100% clean energy city. Can you explain a little bit more about that and explain what your plans are to kind of bring that about within the next couple of years, if that's possible?
Yeah, of course. So I actually, again, have that on my website, schwartzformayor.com. And my goal is for LA to have 100% green energy, green electricity by 2025, which is 8 years away. We're currently at about between 25 and 30. And the city has no plans to get there till, I think, the earliest 2035 at the earliest. But we can get there much earlier. And again, I say we can get there by 2025. There have been a couple of articles about how there's a lot of generating capacity and actually a tremendous amount of oversupply of electricity throughout the state. So now's a perfect time to switch to renewables. But the DWP, I think because of ego and maybe past practice, they like to own all their facilities. They want to own all these solar fields and the wind farms.
Wow.
And instead of occasionally trading, so when the water's flowing in the northwest, we could buy hydropower cheaper than if we were always trying to create these new plants. So we have to trade with our neighbors. We have to do a lot more of solar installation, a lot of distributed power where we put solar panels on people's roof. Right now, only about 1% of houses in LA actually have solar panels. We got to get much more up there. We have 320 days of sun, and we're 15th per capita in solar. We also have to, and here's a big one, we have to reduce energy consumption by 20%, and you could do that with energy efficiency measures. Modern appliances are much, much more energy efficient. So we have to reduce consumption by 20%. And then the last is, among many things, is with the new battery supplies, like the Tesla Powerball, we can store power when it's made from renewables, like when the sun's shining, when the wind's blowing, and store that power and use it at other times. And so now with increased battery supply, we can capture a lot of power and just keep it there. So through all those means, energy efficiency, using, building a lot more solar and renewables, and then trading with our friends, and of course, just reducing the amount of energy we use. So according to my plan, the rates will rise a little bit, but your overall bill should actually stay the same and eventually reduce, just because we will be using less energy. So it's a little bit contradictory, but it's true that while the rates will rise, people's bills will be less because we should be using less energy. And then certainly once it's installed, the bill should start coming down. By the way, 96 cities in America right now have reached 100% green energy. A lot of them, somewhat bigger cities, and so we could definitely do it. And most of them don't own their utility like we do in Los Angeles. Like people say, we're ratepayers. No, we're owners. We own the utility, and we definitely need to. We definitely need to make it green much quicker than it is right now.
Right, absolutely. And I want to ask you one last question here.
Sure.
What would be your response to the Trump administration when it comes to sanctuary cities? I know Los Angeles is a sanctuary city. That's something we kind of take pride on as far as our immigration population. And that's a really hot topic on the national scale right now. So as mayor, what would be your response to that?
Yeah, I've been, very consistent. I do support sanctuary city, city status for Los Angeles, and for a lot of reasons. And what I tell folks is, and there's a lot of people that don't support it here in Los Angeles. And what I tell them is, look, we, I say it's personal too. I mean, all 8 of my great grandparents came here from another country. They were escaping religious persecution, and they had a much better life here. And, we do have to recognize that people from Mexico and south of the border came up here just, going for a regular life, wanting a better life. And so I never want to criticize anybody. You could criticize the Mexican government, but, not those folks. And then it's been 12 years since there's been any net increase in immigration from south of the border. It's been 12 years. So we're dealing with people that have been here a while now, and the Latino population is assimilating into America by all the standards that they say. So what do we do now with the situation is really what we do with the folks that are here and have been here for a while. And I think the ones that, again, haven't committed crimes and have been here and are working, they should have a path to citizenship. So I support that and immigration reform, and let's deal with the folks that are here, give them a chance to earn the right to be citizens, and let's end this once and for all. We have 11 million people in hiding. Almost all of them are hardworking folks and stuff. So I think there's a sane policy there which says, we've tightened up the border. There isn't any more real immigration flow. The people that are here and have been here for a while and are working hard, let's help them become citizens. So, but the other question is, what happens if the Trump administration says, okay, we're not going to give you funds? There have been reports that almost $500 million of our budget comes from federal funds and things, so federal reimbursements or federal grants and things. And so that, I say, we have to deal with it as a state, because Los Angeles can't go against the federal government. We have, whatever we do has to be in consultation and coordination with the rest of the state. It's not a citywide issue. But I really hope that, and I expect the Trump administration, that they're not going to go further than what's been done already, which is, and most people I think would support it, which says, like what I just said, if their criminal activities have occurred, then the people should not be in the United States. But if these are people who have been law-abiding, other than the fact that they came here illegally, but if they've been law-abiding, then let's help them become citizens. So pull them out of the corners and out of hiding. It's been too long, and let's get this immigration stuff behind us already. It's been going on for too long, and there really is a solution. Sorry, last thing. The senators, there was a bipartisan agreement in the Senate a couple of years ago with Republicans and Democrats to do exactly that. And then the campaign happened, and Trump riled people up so much that the coalition fell apart. But there is an agreement that's been kind of agreed to by both sides that if we could ever resuscitate that, which doesn't seem likely right now, but hopefully there is at least a game plan there that's already been agreed to by the Senate. Well, not the Senate, but by both sides and some Republicans and Democratic senators.
Right. Well, yeah. Mr. Schwartz, we are running out of time. I really want to thank you for coming on the show and really getting a chance to speak to the Angelinos. I do hope that you and Mary Garcia get the opportunity to debate. Charlie, you want to say something?
Yes, sorry. Hi, I'm Charlie. I just want to say it's such an honor to hear you speak on our show. And if you couldn't tell by the accent, I am an immigrant living in LA. And to hear you support Sanctuary Cities is really such an uplifting and heartwarming thing. So thank you so much for supporting my people.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And we really want to thank you for getting for talking to the people. We really do think that's really important in our political atmosphere, is that our candidates get out there and reach their constituents, so that way they get a chance to know who they are and who they're voting for. So we definitely want to thank you for that. So ladies and gentlemen, once again, this is Mr. Mitchell Schwartz. You can follow him on Twitter at Schwartz for Mayor.
Yeah, schwartzformayor.com.
schwartzformayor.com. Okay, awesome. Thank you, Mr. Schwartz, for joining us on the show. Good luck to you in the race, sir. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You got it. Cheers.
So long. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Have a good one. Cheers. All right, y'all. And we are almost at the end of our show. We didn't get a chance to get into a lot of stuff today. But I think that was really cool to get the opportunity to speak for a candidate for mayor. This is really where I started a lot of my passion from, was really the LA mayoral race and how low of a turnout that we get for a city our size. So getting the opportunity to speak to a candidate like that is a really big thing. So we definitely want to thank Mr. Schwartz for that. Once again, it's schwartzformayor.com. Check him out, if you live in the city of LA. And next week on the show, and we will be here next week. We might do 2 shows next week, just because I might, have to do 2 shows because we don't get a chance to get to all this stuff in the 43 minutes that we got. Charlie, I didn't even hardly hear your voice tonight. Say something.
I think she talked more than I did.
Yeah, I know. That's crazy.
Yeah, Cam's used to it. Let me talk her ear off.
Right. All right, y'all. Well, that is our show. Thank you so much for joining us. We really want to thank Mitchell Schwartz for joining us on the show. God bless Charlie. God bless Cam. God bless Brooke. God bless everybody on Facebook. Check us out on MikeRileyNow.com. Make sure that you follow us on the Facebook, Twitters, Instagrams, all that shit. And remember that democracy is not a spectator sport. It starts with you. You have to go out there. You have to get involved. Go to your town hall meeting. Call your senator. Call your congressman. Call your mayor, for God's sakes. And call me too, Mike Riley. I'm right here. All right, y'all. We will see you next week. Cheers. I got one more thing to say. You are listening to the Mike Riley Now podcast on the Young Angels of America Network. Follow us by visiting MikeRileyNow.com.